Welcome back to Bread and Butter, where we serve up the basics the average Hearthstone player needs to improve their game. This week, we have a very special guest, Brandon Cole, also known as SuperBlindMan. Brandon, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing fantastic as per usual. It's kind of my normal mode of operation.
Love to hear it. Tito, how about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. I wish my mood was always good, but we can't all live on that plane. But Brandon, what have you been doing outside of Hearthstone this week?
Oh boy, outside of Hearthstone, I have been pretty much preparing. Hearthstone has been my relaxation game lately, but I've been preparing for kind of an upcoming storm. I'll probably get into this a little bit more later, but things are going very well when it comes to the work that I do. And then, we'll talk about that more later, but it's been a good week. It's been a good preparation time for me.
Wonderful.
How about yourself, Doc? What have you been doing?
I watched the Masters Tour this weekend, got my 2 packs. Rooted for Casey. Unfortunately, he didn't quite get there in the end. But it was good games. It was lots of fun to watch, and then I've been playing some BGs and trying to get some quests done for standard so I can get the event done.
I watched Masters as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I was rooting for McBannerface because hype, but
I was surprised when Bannerface got taken out. I was genuinely surprised.
And that's the kick of the new system, right? You have all that grinding to get in there, and then there's not even a Swiss round to get through. You're done. And that's gonna feel bad after like a 3-month window of opportunity there. But outside of that, and I only got 1 pack. I watched way more than 4 hours of the Masters Tour, or at least I had it on, and it stalled out at me at 97% on the second pack.
Oh wow!
So I'm not sure what happened.
I had something like that happen to me too with a Destiny twist drop when the new Destiny expansion came out. So I understand your frustration there.
But it's okay. Aside from that, I had to cut some trees down this weekend, and that's a pain in the butt, especially when you only have a 14-inch chainsaw and the trees are a little bigger. We actually hired somebody off Facebook Marketplace to come down with one of the trees, and they had a professional, full gigantic chainsaw that made quick work of those trees. And
nice.
I was jealous. I was like, why didn't we pay him to just cut the rest of them up real fast, because it literally took him like 20 seconds. And of course my chainsaw broke, and I have to get a new chain, and then it rained all Sunday, so I still have trees that are just mocking me outside saying cut me down, finish cut me up. But it is what it is. But Brandon, how about inside Hearthstone? You said you've been using it to relax. What have you been playing?
Oh yeah, I've been doing quite a lot. I'm one of those Hearthstone players that I used to be all about trying to get to Legend. I tried really, really hard for a while. And then as I started losing time, in the sense that I had less and less time to play, I stopped focusing on rank so much, and I now just play the decks I like, and the ones that I have fun with, and I'm just playing for fun. But that has honestly helped me maintain my enjoyment. I don't get frustrated at not being, high ranked anymore. It is what it is, and I'm enjoying myself. I played a lot of Battlegrounds lately. I'm getting better at Battlegrounds thanks to the only Kripparrian, and his very helpful and insightful videos. And trying a lot of decks. I'm a big Mark Mix fan. I love the crazy nonsense. That's what attracts me to Hearthstone, and so I've been messing around with a lot of those.
Very nice. And you know that playing decks you like and have fun and being successful, they don't have to be exclusively different.
Well, for me, they are.
That's fair.
I mean, here we. I mean, just because, I'm not necessarily saying they have to be. You're right. You're completely right. But for me, lately, it's the difference between wanting to stick with one deck to win in order to win, like picking the thing that will get me wins, versus doing a bunch of things because I want to.
Fair enough. How about yourself, Doc? What have you been playing in Hearthstone?
Just BGs and trying to do getting Outcast Demon Hunter to work, but that's not a deck that works with my brain.
Oh, thank goodness I'm not the only one.
Unfortunately, the deck that I absolutely love right now is not a deck, which is Big Beast Hunter. It was really fun, like the first 3 days of the expansion, but as the days went on, it just did worse and worse, and it just doesn't have enough to fight against Paladin or Blood DK. So it just kind of can't get there, unfortunately.
Your big
and see, that's the difference between me and you. That's the difference between me and you. I love Big Beast Hunter. I still love it just because it's fun.
Well, I love it too, but I'm trying to increase my star multiplier because
yeah, fair enough.
It's just I'm only at like a 6, and so I lose it very early, and so then my grind from like gold 5 all the way where I'm now like plat 7 or plat 8 is all singular stars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I hear that.
Well, I've also been trying lots of decks, and I've completely tanked my rank. I came in at 157, and I am in quadruple. I'm in 5 digits right now. I tried Edelweiss's Bone Show Mage quite a bit. Did not do so well with that. I thought it might be kind of cool to do a YouTube show on a Outcast Tony Demon Hunter, where the plan was to get as many ticks on your weapon of Outcast cards, play Tony, swap the decks, swing with the weapon, and then burn their deck. I did not get a really good game on that one, and that cost me quite a few ranks. I have been trying a couple decks over the last couple days that have been pretty good. I started playing Donkey's Weapon Miracle Rogue, which, if you look at the deck, there is no weapon. Your weapon is the hero power, but you can get so much good weapon synergy out of the cards that are in that set right now. It's actually pretty good, and I've had
that's interesting. With that. Yeah,
because you got the key for me has been you have Air Guitarist, which adds 1 durability to your weapon. So you play that, you shadow step it, you play that, you shadow step it, and then you play Mic Drop, you play the harmonic thing that adds +2 to your weapon, you play poison, the normal poison, and you can, like, I've had an 18-4 weapon at times, so it's very powerful and it's a lot of fun, but it's also very challenging. I had my THL match this week, and my first draft, I think I mentioned this last week, was Najee Boston. And great, first time I'm playing in the match, and I'm playing against someone of that caliber. But I took him to 5 games. I lost, but I was pretty proud of the way I played. I didn't feel like I made too many mistakes, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So what you were saying before, Brandon, was you don't want to play one deck, and I've done a lot of that over the last couple months.
Yeah.
I've played over 600 games of Shadow Priest. I played a lot of Evolve Shaman. I played a lot of Frost aggro Demon Hunter before it was cool, or Death Knight before it was cool.
Nice.
And that's been good, but now that I'm kind of trying to get a little better in THL, I need to branch out. So I'm trying to get into a mindset of not doing the same thing over and over again. And by the way, Doc, our next week topic is going to be around the things we were saying before about you want to play the Beast Hunter, but it's not there. It's kind of like we have a very special guest next week, just about as special as SuperBlindMan here. But it's about your decks and your play style and how you kind of combine the two and what you're good at and what you're not good at. So I'm very excited about that. But
cool.
I think I've talked more than enough. Why don't we get to know our guest, Doc?
No, Homer, don't fill up on bread.
Yeah. So, Brandon, aside from the obvious, where did the name SuperBlindMan come from?
Well, it actually, the origin of SuperBlindMan is actually a childhood origin. I don't know if either of you are old enough to remember the days of America Online, but I do. And back in those days, when you created an account for the first time, you needed a username. And I was probably about, I want to say, probably about 7 or 8 when I did this, and I couldn't think of anything. And I think what it boiled down to was, I'm pretty awesome. I'm kind of super, like Superman. But I'm blind though, so SuperBlindMan. There you go. Like it's really simple. Like it's not like some great story, but like there you go. I needed an AOL screen name, and that's what I got.
That's fantastic.
That's actually pretty great and pretty dang wholesome.
Yeah.
Now, if I could just ask you a quick question before we move on, have you been blind your whole life, or is this something that came on? So our listeners kind of get a good basis of where you're starting.
So technically, no. Technically, I could see for 2 months of my life. I was born with a type of cancer called retinoblastoma. It's an inherited cancer, and it is literally a cancer of the retina, essentially. So the first thing to go is the eyes, because that's where it attacks first. And for the first 2 months, my eyes were functional. My mother tells me that I saw her. She says that I focused on her once. But the problem is, you have no long-term memory until you're about 2. So I have no actual memory of sight. But apparently I could see for 2 months.
Well, that's crazy, but
Yeah, thank you for sharing
thank
that.
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
no problem.
So, what do you do when you don't play Hearthstone?
Now we're getting to it. So, believe it or not, if I wasn't cool enough for being a blind person that plays Hearthstone, I also work in the video game industry. I work as a professional accessibility consultant, making games fully accessible to the totally blind. The thing that I'm currently primarily known for is my work on The Last of Us 2 and Part 1 subsequently as well. But I've done other things too, and there's big things coming from that sector.
I wish I
Awesome.
would have known that before. I would have probably structured the questions in the main topic a little differently.
I thought you did know that before.
No, I just kind of thought
Interesting.
that was an interesting topic. I figured that you would have a lot of insight. Apparently, I was right.
Yeah, I have a lot of insight.
Well, maybe I'm psychic. I don't know. We just learned something.
So, how did you get into gaming in general? And what about Hearthstone drew you in?
Okay, I can answer both those questions very easily. So, gaming in general, I got into gaming because of a practical joke. I'm not even kidding, that's 100% true. When I was a very young child, my brother decided that he would play a wonderful joke on me. He asked me one day if I wanted to play Super Mario Brothers with him. And even my 6-year-old self was like, that doesn't make any sense. It's a video game. I can't play a video game. You have to see to play those, you know. But he persisted, and I don't actually remember how he convinced me, but he did convince me. So we went into the room where our Nintendo was located. He hands me a controller, fires up the game, and says, okay, go. And before you know it, I'm breaking bricks, collecting coins, defeating enemies, saving princesses. It's amazing. Somehow, I beat the entire game. Except then he revealed the punchline, which was that he handed me an unplugged controller while he played the entire game. He played the entire game while I thought I was playing it well. So when I found that out, little Brandon was crushed, absolutely destroyed. I thought I'd done something really cool. I was celebrating internally, and then I was, just utterly destroyed by the fact that I hadn't done anything at all. But at the same time, I made a vow that I would one day beat one game, and that's all the vow was one game. I would beat one game without his help. And so I started trying games and started messing around with games, and I started figuring out that games have patterns, and games, the audio of games means something, and then I could figure out what each sound meant and how to interpret that and how to make use of it to play the game. And eventually I did beat a game on my own without his help. And the first game I ever beat by myself was the original Killer Instinct for Super Nintendo.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was the first one I ever beat by myself. And I immediately ran out and told my mother for some reason, even though she has 100% no interest in games. She has zero interest at all. And also, I'd already beaten the game, so the ending was over and the credits were rolling. So she came in and saw the credits screen and was like, cool, great. Did not get it at all. Did not understand my tremendous accomplishment at all. But I never looked back after that. I just kept on trying things and kept on experimenting and figuring things out. And now I work in games. So, there's a lot more story there. There's a lot more intermediate stuff that happened there, but still, it's been a really, really cool journey for me.
You never looked
as
back.
for Hearthstone, well, yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, everything with me is a pun. All puns are intended. Just take that just for granted. All puns are intended.
Wonderful.
Um, so, as for Hearthstone, the interesting thing about Hearthstone is that I was drawn to it before I could play it. For those who don't know, the blind have only been able to play Hearthstone for the past 2 years. Just barely over 2 years. Well, actually, yeah, just a little more than 2 years now. And before that, way before it, even close to the initial launch of Hearthstone, I was always drawn to it because of its audio design. The thing about Hearthstone's audio is it's very informative. The fact that every single minion makes its own sounds, immediately drew me to the game. It made me want to listen to others play it before I could play it, because I could still follow the matches once I learned what each minion sounded like, and even sometimes what each spell sounded like. Some spells are unique too. So, it immediately drew me for that. And then, I kind of held on to it. For me, it was like just an ongoing passion, an ongoing desire to play a thing I couldn't play. And then the day that I could finally play it, I just dove headfirst in, and I've never stopped. I've played almost every day since. I've missed some days, but I've played almost every day.
That's really cool. So what's your favorite class, and what is your favorite deck of all time?
Favorite class is really difficult because there's a lot of classes I like. I will say right now, just in terms of the fun I have with it, I think my favorite class is probably Death Knight currently. But favorite deck though, I go a little bit nostalgic for this, because it might not be a deck that I'm currently playing, but it's a deck that catapulted me forward in my understanding of Hearthstone, and catapulted me forward in my journey of Hearthstone and diving into Hearthstone. The first deck that I played in Wild really got to me, and it was a Galakron Shaman. And I just loved it. I mean, it was one of the older Galakron Shamans. It wasn't the newer ones with all the well, I mean, there's a couple Galakron Shamans that have come out in the past year or so, but it wasn't that one. It was older than that. It was just when the freeze, the Snowfall Guardian tech was being a thing, with the Galakron Shaman. But yeah, that was my favorite deck for a long time, and that was the one that kicked me into Wild and got me started on that journey, which I've really enjoyed as well. I do enjoy a Wild game now and again.
Now, are there any decks you can't play? Given, I know we'll talk about like the software and stuff later, but is it hard to do something like, say, a Miracle Rogue, where there's a lot of APM and?
Yeah, that any deck that works like that. I mean, I won't say it's impossible, but it's significantly more difficult, because as it is, we already have to listen to everything that happens to, get an idea of what's, we're hearing these things, and they're updating as quickly as they can, but still, you play a card, you have to hear the name of the card, then you can play the next one, and so on and so forth. So that takes time. So it's remarkably difficult to play that kind of deck as a blind person. I don't want to say impossible, because I'm one of those people that thinks that someone out there probably will do it. It might not be me, but someone will do it.
You'd almost need to have like shorthand, especially when you're doing a lot of quick actions and discovers and stuff that you're trying to go through really quickly. You probably need.
It's really the discovers that are the trouble, because like, you can know your hand. Like, we do have some shortcut keys, and we'll talk about this probably more as we talk about the software. We do have some shortcut keys to get to different places on the screen quickly. So if you know your hand, you do have a little bit of a head start. But the discovers give you all sorts of problems, because you have no choice but to read each one of them individually. Like, as a sighted person can, look at a screen and see all of them at once and then make their decision. We have to listen to one, then the next one, then the next one, to figure out what's in the discover in the first place. So yeah, it makes things difficult.
So you also make some content. What kind of content do you make?
I make all sorts of content. My content serves a dual purpose. I try to entertain, of course. I think I at least have enough chops to entertain it somewhat, and I've been told that that's true. So I'll take their word for it. I do try to entertain, but I also make content for a secondary purpose, which is to feed into the other work that I do. Since I work in the game industry, part of my job, as I see it, is to advocate for accessibility where I can and educate regarding accessibility where I can as well. So I make content to try to bring people into the idea of accessibility, try to introduce people to that idea. Every time a new person comes into a stream of mine or comments on one of my videos, if they have a question about how I did something or how I do something or how something works, I will stop playing and answer that question, or I will respond to their comment on the video and answer that question, because I see that as part of what I do. And because I work in the game industry, part of my audience is now also game developers. So I now have occasionally game developers will wander into my chats as well, my streams as well, and I will play something for them to show them, this is how this game is accessible. This is how I play this game. Think about ideas like this for your projects, and maybe we can get something started. It's sort of like all a giant ploy to hire me. No, I mostly kid, but in any case, it's that's the purpose I serve. And now, of course, I now am in the Hearthstone Creator Program, which is a real honor for me because I really just love the game. So now, thank you. And now I will stream, of course, to serve that as well where I can. Although I will absolutely, I completely understand that I'm not in the Hearthstone Creator Program because of my streaming numbers. I get that. I know I don't have great streaming numbers, and that's not why I'm there. I am there because the wonderful folks who run it respect what I've done for the Hearthstone community, for the blind Hearthstone community, and I don't think it hurts that I work in the game industry. I don't think it hurts that I have accessibility ties, and that's fine. It's perfectly fine. I'm still honored to be there, and it's a great experience.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, we're not in the content creator program for our numbers either. So
sure, yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's not all about numbers, which I love about it. By the way, I think that's great.
I was making the joke because we are not quite in the content creator program quite yet. Hey,
yeah, we haven't even felt comfortable to apply.
Okay.
But
I'm one of those you take your shot people. I wasn't always that person, but now I am.
Oh, Doc,
when
I don't think you realize this, but I did apply, for me, but including the bread and butter.
I didn't know that.
Dang. It all gets revealed on this show. It's amazing.
You heard it here first. Right. So you had a card reveal for this set.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about what kind of an experience that was for you?
It was fantastic. Number one, because I never really thought that would happen for me. I was always kind of hopeful that it would. I had ideas. I always had ideas. Of course, I'm an idea person. Ideas are what I do. But I never really thought it would happen. And when I was approached to do it, I was like, yes, yes, this is absolutely happening. We're 100% doing this. And it was a wonderful experience because I got to give people a taste of Hearthstone cards as I hear them, as I understand them. It's stats first. It wasn't about the visuals for my card reveal. Yes, I included the visuals because I'm not heartless, and I know that side of people were going to watch it. I get that. But I did it in such a way where the stats, the text of the card came first, and then you saw the visuals. And I think that was really a unique approach. Number one, because of course I was the first blind person to have a card reveal. But number two, it also opened some eyes. I actually did get messages after that card reveal that said that there were some accounts, Hearthstone related accounts, that are now going to work harder on providing text descriptions for any images that they post because of the effect my card reveal had on them. So
that's amazing.
I win. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's really cool that you affected them in a way that it changed how they want to do part of their business.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's always an honor to hear something like that.
So this one's a two-parter. So the first part is, what is your game mode of choice? And and you kind of answered this one already, but are you a casual player or are you a tryhard?
Oh yeah, okay. So game mode of choice, probably wild. I play standard, but I love all the things that you can do in wild, except for right now when Twig Sphere has broken everything. But I do love wild for what it is. I think that's probably the answer to that question. As far as I guess I'm more of a casual. Like I said, I was going for ranked. I never got to legend. I got close, I got close one time, but I never got there, and I don't think I'm going to get there. Not that's not like me being pessimistic. It's just because the way that I play and the amount of time that I play, which is not as much as other people do because I have a lot of work to do. I'm busy a lot. So it's I've lost a lot of time to that. But so it's fine. I have fun with it. I enjoy it. I love being casual. I still play the game all the time, and I'll keep trying new things and having fun.
So when you play, do you make your own decks or do you find refined ones?
Oh, I 100% find refined decks. I will make no claims to being a deck builder. I will make no claims at all. I have built decks before. I have dabbled. I have attempted, but I find that other people understand these things more than me. So I listen to those people.
Very fair. That's exactly what I do too.
Sure.
So this one's kind of a curveball, but what would be something that people would be surprised to learn about you?
Well, I might have already surprised people by telling them I work in the game industry, but aside from that, let's go with the fact that one of my favorite desserts of all time is good old-fashioned homemade banana bread.
Ooh.
Love it.
Yeah, you right. That's
sometimes there's
a
nothing
good one to
better
be
than
your
that.
favorite.
Yeah, that's good.
Good answer.
Thank you.
So, Doc, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to get hungry on that topic. Maybe it's time to get into a little bit of main course.
Sounds good to me, my guy.
Broccoli, broccoli, it's time to eat your broccoli.
All right, so today our main topic is going to be accessibility in gaming, and I think we have the perfect guest for that.
Yeah, you didn't even know it.
I didn't even know it. Well, wait, I knew we would have a good opportunity to talk about accessibility, but not from the angle that we're about to talk it from. So I'm very excited.
Yeah.
So, what sort of games are you able to play, and are there games that are just not viable? Let's start there.
The first answer is it really depends. There's a lot of games that I can play, but the ratio of games that I can play versus the games that I can't play is staggering. Our options are much more limited than yours as sighted gamers. As far as games I can play, I can play, of course, the games I worked on. I can play Last of Us 2. I can play Last of Us Part 1 because I worked on those and I made them accessible to blind people all over the world, and so I can play those. I can play, there's audio games that are made exclusively for the blind that I can play. We're pretty good at fighting games. Fighting games are the most accessible out of the box genre that exists because of just generally how fighting games typically work. You're always on a 2D plane in most fighting games. So you're always right across from your opponent. There's never any question of where your opponent is. They're always right across from you. You might be on the other side, but you can figure that out based using the stereo audio and things like that. So fighting games usually accessible to us. So that's kind of a popular genre with us. I do play some visual novels sometimes, just because we can use tools to read the screens, and some visual novels actually have accessibility support with self-voicing. So some people think visual novels are a boring genre, but I do like the occasional visual novel. I've dabbled in pretty much everything, with the exception of things like platformers and things. Those are currently probably one of the most difficult genres to get into. But I will never say that something isn't viable. The thing is, I am a career optimist. I believe that with enough time, enough effort, enough developer support, and of course the hiring of people like me, doesn't have to be me, just people like me. It can be me. We can make anything accessible. I believe that. It will take time. It'll take work, and yes, it might cost some money, but we can do it. So I will never say that something isn't viable. I have ideas for just about everything you can think of.
So I think that right now our guests are probably our listeners are probably asking themselves, how do you play Last of Us without being able to see anything? So can you take us through that experiment?
That means I get to tell you what I did to work on it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's a little tangential from the rest of our top, but I mean, I think it's right exactly what we're here for.
Sure. So The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2. The Last of Us 2 actually came first for me because The Last of Us Part 1 is specifically the PlayStation 5 remake. So The Last of Us 2 came first for me. And the way that we play it is through a series of features. It's kind of a whole suite of features. It's not one feature that makes it work. It's a set of features that make it work. So the primary one is navigational assist, which will help us get from point A to point B. It'll help us find our objectives, essentially. So we can press a button, and when we do that, the camera will orient towards our next objective, and thus turn the character that way, since the character movement follows the camera. And it does so. It does pathfinding in a smart way. So what it does is it casts a little ray out until it finds something that's an obstacle, and then that's where it stops. And then you move forward until you reach the end of that, and then you press the pathfinding button again to move to the next one, and on until you get to your objective. But it's also smart. It also takes into account things you have to climb, jump over, all that stuff. It's not just a simple system. It's a smart system. And we also get audio cues that will give us cues for when to jump, when to crouch, when to crawl, when, all those things to get through the environment. We can also locate items. We have a little bit of a scan system. We call it enhanced listen mode. Items can be scanned for as well as enemies. And once we scan for one of those things, we can pathfind to that item or enemy as well. So we can locate all the loot we want. We can move closer to our enemies if we want to take them out, things of that nature. We have something called traversal assistance, which is one of my favorite features because it silently helps you out in the background in little tiny ways that some blind players might not know are happening, but I know because I helped work on it. For instance, things that require a lot of precision, like in Last of Us 2, there's a lot of jumping through windows. And that actually requires a significant amount of precision. I know because I tried it without this feature, and it was actually difficult for me. You basically have to be facing the window directly to jump through it. Well, traversal assistance, among other things, this is not the only thing it does, but just a quick example. Traversal assistance will give you the jump cue that says, hey, you're supposed to jump here. And then when you do that, once you've accepted that that's what's going to happen, it actually kind of grabs control of your character very briefly, turns them so they're very, perfectly facing the window to jump through, and then does the jump. So it's just tiny little assists that kind of nudge you and help you out with traversal, just to make things a little bit better for you. Combat does, of course, use aim assist. We definitely need that, especially with the high intensity combat of The Last of Us. And everything also is narrated. So everything that you can find, every text thing you can find, like every sign, every road sign, every note you find on the ground, every training manual, every comic book, every single thing is narrated by text to speech. So we can appreciate those things too. All menus are narrated. Workbench menu narrated. Crafting menu narrated. Everything is narrated. So everything that a sighted person has access to, we also have that access as well. And that's one of my most important things is that when you put narration in a game, you have to do it all the way. You can't go halfway. I made sure that photo mode was narrated. I personally never use it, but it's narrated because I acknowledge that the totally blind are not the only people that use these features. Someone that has low vision that just wants to rest their eyes may want to use the narration feature, but maybe they want to take a photo. And this way they can, because photo mode is also narrated. So even this only scratches the surface of all. There's 60 plus accessibility features in The Last of Us Part 2. Over 60 accessibility features. Not all of them for the blind, but I feel like even now I'm only scratching the surface. There's so much more I could say. I could talk about this for hours because I worked on it.
So I have a question about the scanning of weapons and enemies.
Yes.
Does it read out what weapon and what type of enemy is in front of you?
It does not. What it does is it does a ping sound. So a lot of this is using audio cues. So if you are scanning enemies and you hear one sound, it means that it's a human enemy. It's very non-specific, but kind of on purpose. Because we didn't want it to be too specific, because that would actually technically be unfair. Believe it or not, as much as the sighted people who listen to this might think that all these features make the game sound too easy, all of this is just to bring it in line. You have to think of this from the perspective of, if these didn't exist, we couldn't play at all. So all these features is just to bring it in line with what a sighted person might experience and allow us to enjoy the story. But to that end, the reason I bring that up is because when I set out to work on a game, I do not intend, my intention is never to make an easy mode. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to make a mode that brings us closer to parity with the sighted experience. So going back to your question, the enemy scans, for instance, are kind of non-specific. They don't tell you what enemy is in front of you, but they will tell you if, based on which sound you hear, if the enemy is human or infected. That's all the enemy scan will tell you. But it will tell you, it'll give you a positional sound that indicates where they are. With items, item scans will tell you if an item is any other item or a collectible item. A collectible item does have its own sound to indicate that it's a collectible, so you might want to pursue it if you're going for collectibles. That's why that sound is there. Otherwise, both scans will also tell you based on the pitch of the sound if it is on the same vertical level as you, or above you, or below you. And that is essentially all they do. They tell you the position. They'll give you the position in the 3D audio field, so you can hear it all around you. You can hear the exact position of a thing. And you can hear whether it's above or below you, or and just kind of vaguely what type of thing it is, but not specifically.
All right.
Thank you.
So a new game is announced and it piques your interest. What sorts of things do you look for to see if it's going to be accessible to you?
Well, here's the sad thing about being a blind gamer. When a new game is announced, and this is still true. We're getting better about this, but this is still true. When a new game is announced, the typical assumption from most blind gamers, and even me sometimes, unless I already knew about it and I'm working on it, haha. But typically the assumption is that it's not going to be accessible, and that is incredibly sad. But the general assumption is that a new game that gets announced isn't going to be accessible, because most aren't. So that's just the reality we live in. More developers are paying attention to accessibility all the time. The conversation about accessibility is growing every single year. So that is starting to change. But right now, unless they are specific developers, like, for instance, if Naughty Dog announced a new game, the assumption would be that it would be accessible because of their track record. But with a very few exceptions, most of the time, the assumption is it probably won't be accessible. And then we kind of distantly hope, like maybe, just maybe, we'll figure out a way to work around it. Maybe it'll be accessible. Maybe it'll have a few features we can use. But yeah, it's kind of sad. The things that I would look for, though, in a game that was accessible, I would see if it had, first step one, does it have any kind of menu narration? Will I be able to navigate the menus without assistance? If it has that, then at least there's hope. But some games need more than that, though. Some games don't, but some games need more.
Well, so you were saying that Naughty Dog, they are, and obviously you have some interest there, but they probably already have a lot of tools in place that they can port from game to game, and a lot of experience with that. It's probably a big issue of cost versus profit with these games, is in order to invest into the amount of effort and time it would take in order to add accessibility to these games is going to probably significantly cut into profit. Would you say that's fair? And if so, how do you think they can navigate around that?
Well, believe it or not, that idea that accessibility means you make less money has essentially been proven false multiple times. The Last of Us 2 is the most awarded game of all time, made a ton of money, definitely profited, and had an entire suite of 60 plus accessibility features. Accessibility does not mean that you lose money. Now, you're right that developers will often use that as their argument against accessibility. Those who are worried about it, those who are nervous about it, and think that it will cut into their costs. But we have raw data for them. We have numbers for them to prove it. There are many people. A lot of the population has some kind of disability. And not only that, we have now, especially these days, we have concrete examples of accessibility features that people that don't think they're disabled use. I can't tell you how crazy it was for me to hear stories after The Last of Us 2 came out. I heard stories from people who were fully sighted that used features that I helped design. For instance, I heard a story from one person who told me that they got stressed out during the game's running sequences, so they turned on navigational assist, because if with that feature on, they didn't have to worry anymore about where they had to go. They just had to get there, and navigational assist would help them do that, and they wouldn't stress out as much. And that's simple as that. It doesn't. Any feature that you might use in a video game, anything you might adjust, anything you might turn on or turn off to make your playing experience better is technically an accessibility feature, because it's removing a barrier for you, and that's what accessibility does. So accessibility is quite honestly always the right answer. Accessible design is good design. It is the way to go. You never know. You make a feature for one group of people, and many might use it. There have been studies that prove that accessibility features are widely used, whether people realize it or not. Subtitles are an accessibility feature, folks, just so you know.
Nice. So let's bring it back to Hearthstone a bit. So Hearthstone is not a game designed for sightless playing, but the community has someone in the community or a group of people in the community made software that allowed you guys to access the game. And then I think it was before Lich King that they announced that they were no longer going to be able to support that.
Yes, it was just before Lich King. Yep.
And just before Lich King, but then a couple things happened, and Blizzard also said that they're going to be picking up the work on that at some point. And it also So what happened with all that, and what are these tools that help you play this game?
So essentially, the tool that helps us play Hearthstone is called Hearthstone Access. It's a mod for the game that adds a few things to make it accessible. It adds keyboard commands to access the entirety of the game. And it also adds support for screen readers. So the things that we use already on our computers to read the screen can now read Hearthstone because of this mod. They could not read anything in Hearthstone before that. And I want to stress how much of a big operation that is. It wasn't just like, oh, we put in a line of code that says support screen readers now. No, every single text output that the game creates had to be manually coded for screen reader support. And that is continuously true as we keep trying to add new modes to the game. I mean, to our access of the game, because we don't have access to everything, believe it or not. Just most things, but not everything. So what happened there was the initial project was started by a guy who goes by the name Guide Dev. That's kind of his development name, and he's very private. He doesn't talk about what his actual name is. He was just always Guide Dev to us. And he started this project a couple of years ago, and he did it by himself. And that is kind of where this is headed. He did it by himself for a very long time, for like I said, a couple of years. And he has a family and he has a job, but he was taking out of his free time hours and hours and hours to code this thing for us. Especially once it blew up and got popular. When he initially made it, he had no idea the effect that it would have. He had no idea that it would blow up to the extent that it did. But he wanted to support it, so he did. And he took a lot of time to do that. And we're talking like 10-hour coding sessions, according to him, to make this work. And finally, he decided that it was just too much. And I do not blame him at all. He has a family. I fully support that. You got to take care of your people. So he decided it was too much, and he was going to sunset it, and that was going to be the end of it. And so when that happened, all of us blind players who loved Hearthstone and who loved playing it all every day kind of panicked a little bit. We didn't want to lose the game that we had fallen in love with. For me, I'd been in love with it for a long time, but we didn't want to lose it because we had access to it, and we just didn't want it to go away. And it would go away in the next patch, because every patch, the mod has to be updated again. Every single major patch. So it would go away. On the day the Lich King patch came out, it was going to disappear. So we created petitions, and we were very, very lucky, and we did the work. We put in the work. I shared it probably, I don't know, dozens of times. And we got a lot of signatures. We got thousands of signatures on these things to convince Blizzard to make the game accessible natively. And they have agreed. We did win that fight. The team that there was a small team that was working on features that were just meant to complement Hearthstone Access. So they did embrace this from the beginning, by the way. Like that's one thing I will say about Blizzard. Blizzard has been great to us. Blizzard saw this mod, and typically they don't want people to mod Hearthstone. Just to throw that out there. Typically that's a no-no. But they saw this mod, and they're like, oh, this is great. This gives people access to the thing that we have, and we want them to have access to it. And they wholeheartedly embraced this, and that's one of the most wonderful things about this story. But they dedicated some people to work on features that at first they were just going to complement Hearthstone Access. Like, okay, how can we make development of Hearthstone Access easier for the people that develop it. That was their initial idea. But now that team has kind of been reassigned to the idea of working on, slowly but surely, working on native Hearthstone Access, so we don't need the mod anymore. It just becomes part of the game. And I can't wait for that day. That's going to be a fantastic day. But for now, the original developer of Hearthstone Access, Guide Dev, has given the community his development tools that he created to work on the game. And so now they are able to work on it and modify it. And we're very, very, very lucky. Again, there's a lot of luck involved in this story. We're very lucky to have found, and the petitions helped with this, by the way, a collection of people that know enough about actual code, because you have to get into the code of Hearthstone to make this mod work. And we're lucky enough to find enough of them that it is now a community effort. Multiple people are working on this mod now and adding content to it and making sure it works with every patch. And it's a glorious thing to see.
That's beautiful. And
It is.
it was a big story for a while, and that's kind of where I got you on my radar up until your card reveal when that all came in. But that's fantastic. I'm hoping that it's not quote unquote soon as typically is with Blizzard, and that they really put a effort in to get this in there, so that way you guys don't have to maintain it outside of the code.
I am a career optimist, but I do know enough people at Blizzard that I don't think that they're messing with this. I think it will take time, because from what I understand, it's not as simple as just, oh, well, there's this mod, let's just take it and integrate it into our thing. Apparently, you can't really do that as a big giant company. You have to basically rewrite from the beginning. You have to basically do it from scratch. So that's a lot of it. And I think it'll take a lot of time, but I think eventually it will happen.
Nice. So let's shift topics slightly. Right now, AI is a hot topic. Everybody has a lot of strong opinions about it. It's become really popular with the art stuff, the Chat GPT. What has the rise of AI recently done for the accessibility in gaming, and how does that fit in? Do you feel it as a positive or a negative here?
In terms of gaming, right now the rise of AI hasn't done much for accessibility. Not in terms of gaming, but it has done something for accessibility as a whole. What is starting to come out now is AI-generated descriptions of images online. And that is proving to be a very worthwhile use of AI. And that is something that I look forward to. There's a couple of apps that are working on support for that. And I really think that's going to be great. One of the most frustrating things, and of course, I still encourage all of you listeners out there, when you post an image on a social media or something, add an alt tag, support the blind community by giving us a description of what you posted. But for those that don't, do that, we will probably sooner than later have a way to get AI to look at that image, figure out everything that's in it, and then describe it to us. And the examples that I've seen of this working are pretty cool. So I'm really excited about that. I guess another effect that AI has had on gaming is that there is a mod now for World of Warcraft Classic that gives all the NPCs that don't have voice lines AI-generated voice lines. So that's fun.
That's pretty cool.
That's just fun though. It's not necessary. It doesn't, I can. This is a whole different story, and I won't get into this, but WoW Classic is also blind playable because of a mod. There is a completely separate thing that allows us to play World of Warcraft. So those AI voices are not necessary, but they sure are cool.
No, that's fantastic. So do you see any other positive uses of AI in accessibility? Especially given that you do this for a job that I didn't know when I asked these questions. Where do you see some places where you could possibly pull this in?
I think there are uses, but I hesitate to. Well, okay. I think one possible way you could use AI is to generate voice samples. I go back to AI voices, AI generated voices. You could generate things for narration to make narration easier. If you can't implement a narration engine on your own in your game, you could use AI sampled voices to generate those narration strings. And that could be one possible use. But I also hesitate to stray too much into the AI voice samples for gaming territory, because problem is I deeply respect voice actors, and I really truly believe that voice actors, do not deserve to be out of a job because of AI voices doing their work for them. So I don't want to go too far into that territory, which makes me not really have a great answer to that question, because I think the way it's working right now in terms of making accessibility happen in a game, especially blind accessibility, which is so complex as it is, I think it is working fine, and we don't necessarily need AI for that. The image description thing I already mentioned is probably the best current use of AI that I'm aware of.
Oh, fantastic. And it's a very dicey situation. Everyone has all their opinions, and there's a lot of positives that come from AI, but also like you were saying, like you don't want AI, you don't want artists to not have the work. You don't want AI stealing artists' work. You don't want to have so it's a very fine line, but it's really interesting.
And the thing is, I love the tech. Like, I will absolutely. So, one of my pastimes of late, just because I'm one of those people that is just, I'm fascinated by cool technology. So, I will go into GPT-4 and I will make it write little funny stories for me because that impresses me. Like, I'll do that, and then I will take those funny little stories that it writes for me and I'll run them through 11 Labs, which is the best voice generation of all time, in my opinion. It creates the most human sounding voices I've ever heard that are not actually people, which is insane. It's absolutely insane. Anyway, but I love the tech, so I mess with the tech, but I don't use it for any kind of nefarious purpose. I have fun with it, and then I let it go.
Yeah, I think that's what most of us have been doing, is having a little fun with it. Like, you can tell the AI to think that they're Adam Sandler and then explain the theory of relativity.
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna try that now. Thanks.
So to wrap this up, what would you ask of our listeners and just gamers in general to make the gaming space more welcoming to folks that can't see or have other disabilities?
Yeah, this is a question I actually thought a lot about, and I do have an answer for it, and I hope that it rings true with some people. So here we go. To the listeners out there, what I ask you to do is keep an open mind when it comes to accessibility. Acknowledge that not everyone is going to play a game the same way that you play it, but accept the fact that that is okay. Accept the fact that even the people that don't play a game the same way as you are also gamers, because we are. We have the same desires to play games as you do. It's why we are so loyal when a game is finally made accessible to us. We tend to give a developer that makes their game accessible undying loyalty, because they did a thing that not every developer will do. It might work a little differently. It might function a little differently, but ultimately, all these features just exist to bring it in line. Remember what I said before about the parity thing, about if these features weren't there, we wouldn't play the game at all. And some of you might be thinking, well, then games aren't for blind people then. And believe me, I've heard that before. You should accept that games aren't for you and move on and find something else. That doesn't make any sense. Games are and always have been for everyone. They are experiences that provide you escapism. They provide you a way into another world. They provide you a way into another character for a while. And that should be true no matter who you are and what disability you have. So, stay open-minded. And just think about this too. I brought this up a little bit before. I touched on this before. But every feature, I'm going to say this again, every feature that you use, every time you modify a feature, any feature, and you think, when you do it, you're like, I don't like this, or this will make my, experience easier. That's accessibility. Breaking down a barrier for yourself, making something that is easier, not necessarily easy, maybe easier is not the right word, but makes more sense for you, fits your playstyle better. Anytime you modify a feature like that, if you turn down the volume of music so you can hear sound effects better, if you turn subtitles on, if you turn off motion blur, which a lot of people I know do, that's accessibility right there. You're doing an accessibility thing. Maybe the blind turn on more features than you. Maybe the blind turn on different features than you. But we're all gamers, and we all just want to play.
No, that's fair, and I can't imagine. I wouldn't understand why people would think that way. Because I just recently dove into Hades, and I discovered that.
I love Hades,
and that's a beautiful game. And I my mind thinking about this today is like, how would SuperBlindMan play Hades? And
I have played Hades, and I've beaten Hades too.
So
Heck yeah.
and that's such a wonderful game because it continually tells you the story and
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
such a rich environment. I'm glad you were able to experience that, and like who wouldn't
Yeah.
want I want everyone to experience that game. Doc, you
Yep,
played
I've
Hades,
I've
right?
even I've seen the true ending of Hades as well. I went all the way
Awesome.
with it.
I still need to get there.
Doc,
Do it now, right
do
now.
it now. All right. But anyway, Doc, I think I'm getting full. I think it's time for a little dessert. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
The time has come for this cookie. Nom 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 nom. Oh, nom 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 nom. Ah. Bye bye.
So, listeners, if you like the show, or even if you have criticisms, please leave a review. Let us know. Let us know how we're doing because it helps us make the show better overall. And it just it gives us some validity for what we're doing here every week. By no means am I strong arming any of you to leaving us a review, but reviews are appreciated when they do come in. Brandon, where can people find you on social media?
The really cool thing is I'm very easy to find. I am SuperBlindMan almost everywhere. I'm SuperBlindMan on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch. Basically everywhere you might look, you'll find me as SuperBlindMan everywhere.
I did not see that coming.
No, good, because I didn't either.
How about yourself, Doc?
Everyone can find me on Twitter and Twitch at Doc McButt. And how about yourself, Tito?
And you can find me at Tito Santana HS on both Twitter and Twitch. Super Blind Man, would you like to shout out anybody this week?
Oh wow. Would I like to shout out anybody? You know what I'll do? I will actually shout out my fiance's photography website. My fiance, so some people see this as ironic, because photographer chose a blind guy. My fiance is a concert photographer. She takes photos. She actually has her own kind of online magazine type thing. She has an entire team of female photographers that take photos of concerts all around the country. And her website can be found at chicksinthepit.com.
Now, is that CHK?
CHICKS in the pit.com.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. How about yourself, Doc? You got any shout outs this week?
Yeah, so first and foremost, Super Blind Man for being on the show.
Hey, thank you.
And then I just want to give a shout out to my partner, Cortland. Because she loves hiking. I've always loved hiking, but I've never had someone with like the urge to do it with me, and it's not something that I'd ever do by myself. And we've gone on some pretty incredible hikes the last 2 weeks, and it's just been a good time. So, thank you, sweetheart. Tito, how about yourself?
Well, I'd like to thank Brandon for being here, obviously. I'd like to remind people
You're
that we have Fight Night this Saturday, April 29th at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tito Santana HS on Twitch, where Edelweiss and Rorschach are going to be going head-to-head in an off-meta battle. They're going to draft like we did last time. There's going to be 6 different content creators they can pick from, including, let's see if I remember everybody, McBannerface, Ridiculous Hat, Blister Guy, Wicked Good, Ron Mexico, and Deck Tech. And they're going to provide 15 cards, and the competitors will pick a person. So they'll say, I'll take Blister Guy. They'll get his 15 cards in class, and then they're going to have to spend 15 minutes or so building a deck around the idea that was provided to them. And then they will do the best of 5 challenge. So really looking forward to that. We'd be remiss if we didn't say goodbye to the Angry Chicken, because they had their last episode. And I'm sure if you listen to anything we do, you listen to Queen Concede or Blizzlet or any of those shows. So we all know that Hat has began to retire as a content creator because he's going to be working for Blizzard. And we're all very excited for that. But there's going to be a gaping hole in our heart in content creation. And we wish him the best and look forward to seeing what he does next. So, okay, so in the spirit of the fact that people know if you mention Hat on social media, he usually responds within 20 seconds, and I'm sure that's not going to be the case anymore. As I was saying this, I got a DM from Hat. So it was kind of funny.
He always knows.
He does always
ever
knows.
present.
But anyway, I think that's going to do it for us, everybody. I think we're toast. See ya.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Slide two brothers meet one another when they slide up to the mic. It's bread and butter with one another. Let's start up that recording light.